Next guest disagrees wholeheartedly. Let's bring in member of the Foreign Relations Committee, Republican Senator RAND Paul of Kentucky. Senator Paul, always good to have you on, sir.
Thanks.
You said yesterday this is a smoking gun, the Susan Rice story. You called it an enormous deal. Why do you disagree with Bill Press?
Well, for years, both progressives and libertarians have been complaining about these backdoor searches. It's not that we're searching maybe one foreign leader and who they talk to. We search everything in the whole world. There were reports a couple of years ago that all of Italy's phone calls were absorbed in a 1 month period of time. We were getting Merkel's phone calls. We're getting everybody's phone calls. But by rebound, we are collecting millions of Americans' phone calls. If you want to look at an American's phone call or listen to it, you should have to have a warrant, the old-fashioned way, in a real court where both sides get represented. But a secret warrant by a secret court with a lower standard level because we're afraid of terrorism is one thing for foreigners, but both myself and a progressive, Ron Wyden, have been warning about these backdoor searches for years and that they could be politicized. The facts will come out with Susan Rice, but I think she ought to be under subpoena and she should be asked, did you talk to the president about it? Did President Obama know about this? So this is actually eerily similar to what Trump accused them of, which is eavesdropping on conversations for political reasons.
Oh,
they're totally different, I'd have to say. They're totally different. The idea that the President of the United States, and that's what Donald Trump's accusation is, the President of the United States ordered wiretap of Donald Trump's Trump Tower just did not happen. Did not happen,
That's
Senator.
very different.
But the idea, the problem with Trump's tweet was that it was false. But what we have now is a story that seems to be true, which is, and again, what Senator Paul is saying is, they have the ability, if you have any contact with overseas, if somebody you don't even know they're overseas contacts you, that our government has that ability to come after us is chilling precisely because it can be used for political purposes. And when Bill is saying, oh, the National Security Advisor is not political, it's somebody who serves at the pleasure of the president. And we know Susan Rice. We know her history. We know that, she spun us into the Libya war. In my memory, people who lied us into wars are not looked on as these apolitical, intelligence assets. This is a scary thing that's happening.
Yeah, if I may. Listen. The Secretary of State serves at the pleasure of the President. The Defense Secretary serves. The FBI Director serves at the pleasure of the President.
And we call them political appointees, political
That does
hires.
not make them political animals, which would...
But I'm distinguishing from career intelligence
She's not
people.
a political operative. The other thing I'd like to point out to Senator Paul is, again, they were not spying on these Americans. I've got a problem with all of that blanket NSA spying, too. They were listening to conversations by foreign nationals, of foreign adversaries from Russia who are in this country. We spy on them, they spy on us. That's the way it works. And in those conversations, they picked up all these Trump people that were talking to them.
Senator Paul?
The objections that civil libertarians have had to this program is that you've lowered the standard. We'll spy on foreigners at a drop of the hat. We have no standard of the Fourth Amendment at all. And some of that I can agree to. But by rebound, we're collecting millions of conversations of Americans. Those should be protected by the Fourth Amendment. And frankly, I think Bill sounds a little bit more like apologist for the Democrats here than he does about someone who's concerned about the Fourth Amendment and Americans' privacy.
Senator, you did call this a smoking gun, which says that you believe this proves some sort of collusion, perhaps, between the Trump campaign and Russia. What do you believe it's a smoking gun for?
The smoking gun is that President Trump said that he was wiretapped. We don't have wires in our phones anymore. Nobody actually literally taps a wire. They might on occasion, but for the most part, we use the term wiretapping to mean eavesdropping. So now we know that someone in the Obama administration was eavesdropping and specifically searching a data bank looking for the Trump people. That's a big deal.
Senator, there's a difference, between incidental surveillance, which is what this was, and ordering wiretapping on an office.
I think it's a mistake.
To assert that this proves what Donald Trump said is true,
it's just simply
irresponsible.
I think it's a mistake to downgrade this and say, oh, it was just incidental, it's no big deal. It is a huge deal that we are collecting millions of Americans' phone calls and that someone can go to a keyboard and put your name in and search it without a warrant. This is an illegal, warrantless search. This is the kind of stuff that is rife for abuse from either party. And Joe had it exactly right when he said, if Dick Cheney did this to the Obama administration, Bill and every other leftist in the country would be on the other side of this issue. It's not Senator, a partisan issue.
But you know what? It's very, very different thing to say someone in the Obama administration was surveilling, was listening to specific conversations. We just simply don't know that.
Well, here's the thing: is you can order the specific, listening device or you can say, you know what, we already have it, and it's this amazing reverse targeting, and we have millions of people in a database, and I can be Susan Rice and go down and type Donald Trump or General Flynn into a database, and boom, up comes all this information. Is that not the same as ordering the surveillance? They know it exists. Look, every international businessman or woman who talks overseas is in that database. Do we want political officials to be able to type in the name of Bill Gates and find out they have a deal going on in Europe?
But those names
we
are
do
supposed to
not
be
want that
masked.
to happen.
That's the point.
I believe Susan Rice abused this system, and she did it for political purposes. She needs to be brought in and questioned under oath.
You believe that, but none of us here, including Senator, with all due respect, know that. So let's just be very careful here. And I'm not defending Susan Rice. I'm not at all.
Ask her whether President Obama ordered this or whether he knew about it. That is a big deal if the outgoing administration was actually literally sifting through things. And part of his administration already said we were going to scatter, we were going to get as much information, we were going to scatter it out there publicly to try to harm the Trump administration. This was a witch hunt that began with the Obama administration, sour grapes on the way out the door. They were going to use the intelligence apparatus to attack Trump, and I think they did.
Senator Paul, you had an audience with President Trump, a golf game a couple of days
recently. It just happens to be, and you sound like this. It's so interesting.
First of all, who won when the two of you played, sir?
Well, the first thing I will admit is that the president is very good, and of the foursome, he probably was the best in the foursome. But we did have a wager, and the president was my partner, and the wager was this: if our team won, that, you know, I'd just be on board, I would throw out everything I said over the last month, and I would be all in for the plan. But as it were, the match wound up tied, and since we were tied, I'm still wanting it to happen. I still offer new alternatives, new ways of thinking about it, because I think we are still at an impasse. I think they still think they can pound a square peg into a round hole, and that's what's still going on. I've offered them a way out of this that I think pleases moderates and conservatives. And the way out of this is not to try to put all the things that moderates want to retain in the bill, simply leave them as a little bit of Obamacare that we don't get rid of. Even though I'm for getting rid of all of it, I would compromise by leaving some in place. But what I don't like, and what many conservatives don't like, is to repeal all of the Obamacare subsidies, but then replace them with Republican subsidies. If you want to keep some subsidies, just repeal 80% of the Obama subsidies. Conservatives might be allowed to go along with that.
So, Senator, you're confirming out of your conversation with the president that the president is not, in fact, done with health care. As the White House said a week and a half ago, they said, we've turned the corner, it's behind us, we didn't get it done. They want to come back to it and come back to it soon, it sounds like.
My impression is that no one's given up on this. I've not given up. Freedom Caucus has not given up. And I also don't think the White House has either. I can't characterize what was said a week ago, but from this weekend, my conversations with both the president, the budget director, as well as the chief of staff is everybody still wants to do what we promised to do, which is a repeal Obamacare.
All right,
Okay, Senator Rand Paul, I learned a lot here.
Thanks, Senator.
Susan Rice needs to be subpoenaed, and then also that good golf. This is what I learned today. Good golf.
Well played.
Good golf is when you pick the ball up and walk across the green and put it in the hole. I didn't know that.
Or just kick it
I didn't
subtle.
know that.
Give it a little kick.
Subtle kick when no one's looking, and then pick it up and put it in the hole is good golf. If you had told me that, you could have saved me hours when I played once.
You should play golf with me. That's the way we do it.
Because that's what Trump does. Tim Carney, final thoughts this morning?
Well, Rand Paul's right on the health care thing, that every aspect of the Republican Party is moving to do this as quickly as possible. What they want to do is they want to pass it under a budget reconciliation before they have to pass a budget when reconciliation would run out. So when you say, oh, Obamacare took 13 months, which is what we've been saying at the Examiner, their counter argument on the Republican side is we need to pass this before May because we don't want to use up both reconciliations. We want the second one for tax reform. So he's right. All the Republicans and all gears are moving ahead with Obamacare repeal and replace as quickly as they can this spring.
Bill?
I think I'm going to take a counterintuitive approach here. I think Donald Trump's making a big mistake to try to go back to health care. You know, it was a humiliating loss. They're not going to make it this time either. Paul Ryan's not going to be able to round up the votes, so he's going to have a second loss on top of the first one. I think you should do what he said first of all, which is just move on.
All right, Bill Press. Thank you, Tim Carney. Thank you as well.
Guys.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around.